Hi Reddit. I'm 38F, and I'm writing this while staring blankly at the wall, replaying everything that's happened over the last year. I'm not really the type to air family drama online, but at this point I think I just need to tell the story, partly to get it out of my system and partly because I think some of you will understand better than my own family ever has. I'm the oldest of two kids. My brother Julian is 35, and depending on who you ask in my family, he's either the second coming of a saint or just so charming, isn't he? I used to think that whole golden child thing people talk about online was exaggerated, something from movies or dramatized stories. But now I could write a book on it. Growing up, things seemed normal on the surface. My parents weren't overly affectionate, but they did the basic parent stuff. Birthday parties, school plays, packed lunches, that kind of thing. But even when we were kids, I started noticing a pattern. When I brought home straight A's, my dad would pat me on the head and say, "That's what we expect from you." When Julian brought home a C+ in math, it was suddenly the teacher's fault. "She just doesn't know how to work with boys," Mom would say, rolling her eyes like the poor man was being persecuted. I got my first part-time job at 16, saving up for a school trip to Europe. My parents said if I wanted it, I had to earn it. I did. I worked weekends at a bookstore and skipped out on a lot of friend hangouts. Julian, meanwhile, got a brand new gaming console that same year just because. When I asked about it, my mom replied without missing a beat, "Your brother doesn't ask for much. Let him have something nice." There were years of this. Tiny moments that added up. Things I brushed off at the time because, well, it's family. You grow up thinking the people around you have your best interests at heart. That even if they're unfair sometimes, it's not personal. But looking back, I see now that the imbalance wasn't an accident. It was a quiet kind of favoritism, a slow burn that became my normal. Even into adulthood, that dynamic stuck. I got my degree in communications, started working in event planning, and eventually started my own small business designing and coordinating local events. It's not flashy, but I love what I do. Julian, on the other hand, bounced around. He did a semester of community college, then dropped out. Tried being a DJ for a while. Then he worked at a car dealership, then quit. My parents supported him through every twist and turn, calling him a free spirit and praising his entrepreneurial mindset. I didn't complain. I stayed in my lane. I worked hard, paid my own bills, sent flowers on every birthday, every anniversary. I never forgot a single family holiday, never missed a gathering, until one day, they made it very clear that I wasn't welcome anymore. But I'll get to that. About a year ago, Julian met Sierra, and that was when the family dynamics shifted from frustrating to outright hostile, though I didn't realize it right away. Sierra is the type of woman who knows how to be liked. She walks into a room and greets everyone by name, laughs a little too loud at other people's jokes, always posts the perfect filtered photo of her brunch or bouquet of flowers. I don't mean that to sound bitter. If anything, I was hopeful at first. I thought maybe Julian had found someone who'd bring him a little direction. She was perfectly pleasant during our first meeting, smiled, asked me about my job, complimented my shoes. But there was a sharpness behind her friendliness, something I couldn't quite name at the time. I chalked it up to nerves. Then, gradually, things started to shift. Family dinners became more and more about Sierra. My parents acted like she was a visiting dignitary. My mom started calling her my girl and raving about her taste in decor. My dad would bring up how Sierra's been so good for Julian and how he's finally settling down, thanks to her influence. At one dinner, I brought a homemade cake. Baking is a hobby of mine, and I'd spend hours trying a new recipe. Sierra took one polite bite and said, "Oh, this is cute. We made a cake last week too, but we used almond flour and monk fruit sugar. It was so light." Then she pushed her plate away. My mom whispered to me later that I really should try to learn what people are eating these days. Little things. Always little things. But they added up. And then, last spring, Julian and Sierra bought a house together. I didn't hear it from them. I heard it from Aunt Muriel, who casually mentioned it while we were having coffee. "They just got the keys," she said. "Isn't that exciting? I'm sure you've already seen the pictures." I hadn't. I hadn't even known they were looking. I congratulated Julian over text. He sent back a thumbs up emoji. No words. No thanks. No, you should come see it sometime. Just a blue bubble with a hand gesture. That was when something in me started to shift too. I didn't press. I didn't ask why I hadn't been told. I just filed it away, like all the other little slights. A few weeks later, my dad called me out of the blue. "Hey, honey," he said. "Just letting you know we're all heading to Julian and Sierra's on Saturday. They're having a small get-together, nothing formal. Mostly just family." I blinked at the clock. "This Saturday?" "Yeah, nothing major. You don't have to come, of course. I just thought I'd let you know in case you felt like dropping by." There was a pause. "I mean," he added, "I know these things aren't really your scene." That line hit me in a way I can't quite explain. I've never caused drama, never once raised my voice at a gathering. But somehow, I'd been quietly labeled the problem. I could have argued, asked what he meant, but I didn't. I said, "Thanks for letting me know," and hung up. And I didn't go. The next day, while scrolling through Instagram, I saw the first photos. Then came the group pictures. Decorations. A full buffet. Matching signs and balloons. Custom drink stirrers. And there, in the middle of the room, was a printed seating chart. Names in calligraphy. Matching centerpieces. It wasn't nothing major. It was a full-blown housewarming party. And everyone, every aunt, cousin, and second cousin, was there. Everyone but me. But I didn't cry. I didn't message anyone. I didn't even comment. After the housewarming party photos flooded social media, I did what I always do when I'm hurt, but trying not to show it. I got quiet. I stopped texting in the family group chat. I didn't like or comment on the endless stream of pictures. I didn't call to ask how the party went or what the new house looked like in person. I just went silent. For days, no one noticed. And that silence gave me time to think. I had spent years bending over backwards to show up for this family, rearranging my work schedule for birthdays, hand-making personalized gifts, offering help without being asked. I hosted baby showers for cousins, helped design invitations for weddings I barely got a seat at, and always showed up with a smile, no matter how passive the comments or how clear the favoritism. And for what? To be labeled the troublemaker, the one whose absence was more appreciated than her presence? I wasn't angry, not in the shouting, red-faced way my dad gets when the cable goes out. I was calm, focused, and somewhere in that quiet, I decided it was time to stop playing the role they'd written for me, the too serious, too sensitive, too cold older sister. So when I got an email a week later about a small business spotlight event, a local networking and promotional opportunity, I decided to do something I'd never done before. I reserved the venue. Not for the event, though I did plan to attend. I reserved it for a celebration of my own. For the past 5 years, I'd been slowly building my event planning business. At first it was small, birthday parties, baby showers, a few corporate gigs. But it grew. Quietly. Steadily. I had finally reached a place where I wasn't just getting by, but thriving. I had clients referring me left and right, a small team under me, and even a few recurring contracts with local businesses. But I'd never really celebrated it. So I decided I would. I'd throw an anniversary event for my business. Not a launch party, not a client mixer. Just a celebration of 5 years of hard work and growth. And this time, I wasn't going to invite my family out of obligation. I invited who I wanted. Colleagues, friends, clients who had become like family. People who had encouraged me, believed in me, and respected me. I had custom invitations designed, tasteful, minimal, printed on thick matte cardstock. I spent hours making sure every detail was perfect. I rented string lights and floral arrangements, hired a local jazz trio, and planned the menu down to the smallest bite. It wasn't a massive event, maybe 50 guests total, but it felt right. I debated for days about whether to send invitations to my family. I knew what would happen if I didn't. I'd be painted as vindictive, dramatic, overly sensitive. Again, so I compromised. I told myself I'd send them to whoever had reached out to me personally after the housewarming. Not people who liked my photos or left heart emojis. People who actually spoke to me. That was easy, because no one had. Not even Julian. So I didn't send a single invitation to my parents, Julian, Sierra, or anyone else who had treated me like I didn't exist. The event was scheduled for a Saturday evening in late June, exactly 1 month after the housewarming. And as the date approached, I didn't advertise it on social media. I didn't talk about it in the group chat. I didn't drop hints. I simply moved forward. The night of the event, everything went off perfectly. The weather was warm but breezy. The venue, a renovated garden house downtown, looked beautiful. Guests mingled under soft lights, holding sparkling lemonade and plates of delicate hors d'oeuvres. I made a short speech thanking those who had supported me, and afterward, I was swarmed by people saying how proud they were, how beautiful everything looked, and how they couldn't wait to see what came next. I wasn't trying to make a statement, but apparently, my silence made one for me. Because about 3 days after the event, I got a text from my cousin Marcy. It was a photo, one of my invitations, still sealed, still in its envelope. She captioned it, did you mean to leave people out? Just found this in our mailbox this morning, no postmark. At first, I was confused. I hadn't sent her an invitation, and I definitely hadn't mailed any without postage. Then, I looked closer. It wasn't her address. It was mine, but the envelope had her name written on it, in handwriting that looked a lot like Sierra's. My heart started racing. I called Marcy. Where did you find that? I asked. In my mailbox. I thought maybe it got delivered wrong, but it has my name on it, so I don't know. It's weird, but the address is yours. It didn't take long for me to piece it together. Sierra must have somehow gotten access to the invitations, or at least knew I was planning something, and intercepted the guest list. Whether she found the RSVP page or got someone else to spill, I'll never know. But the envelope being addressed with my home address and her name on it wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. Someone, whether Sierra herself or someone doing her a favor, had collected a few of the invitations I never sent and placed them in people's mailboxes with my address as the return, making it look like I had sent them, then deliberately disinvited people. Over the next 24 hours, I received 5 more messages, all from extended family, all asking why their invitation arrived late, or not at all. Some were polite, some were passive-aggressive. One even said, "Would have been nice to celebrate your business, but I guess you're too good for family now." I didn't respond. Instead, I waited. I knew the real storm was coming. I could feel it building. Because if there was one thing my parents hated more than me causing a scene, it was not being included in one. And sure enough, the call came the next evening. My dad. I let it go to voicemail. Then my mom. Then, finally, Julian. When I finally picked up, his voice was cold, distant. "So, you threw a party." I said nothing. He continued. "You didn't invite mom or dad?" "I didn't think they'd want to come," I said simply. "You invited Marcy. You invited clients, but not your own family." "I invited the people who've supported me," I said quietly, "who actually treat me like I matter." There was a long pause. Then Julian said something that I still think about. "Well, we knew you'd cause trouble eventually." I smiled. I actually smiled. "Then it's good I didn't come to your housewarming," I said. "Wouldn't want to ruin the seating chart." He hung up. But that was just the beginning. Because a few days later, my aunt, one of the few neutral family members, called to warn me that something was happening behind the scenes. Sierra had posted something vague, but pointed on social media about fake support and jealous people trying to tear others down. My mother had sent out a long family email claiming I had excluded blood relatives in favor of clients and social climbers. Julian hadn't said much publicly, but according to my cousin's screenshot, he liked every post that implied I was the villain. And that's when I decided if they wanted to play this game, they were going to regret it. But not with drama, not with accusations or insults, with facts, with receipts, with something they couldn't twist or spin. And I had just the thing. After that call with Julian, I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything or scream into a pillow, like some people might when the people they call family choose to humiliate them. Again, so publicly. No, I sat in my office, in the quiet, with my hands folded in my lap. And then I turned to the old storage bin behind my desk. It was the kind of plastic tote people keep childhood photos and dusty holiday decorations in. Mine held years of files and mementos from my business. Notes from clients. Contracts. Thank you cards. Proof of payments. I kept it more for nostalgia than practicality, though something in me always liked having a record of things, just in case. Near the bottom was a slim folder. I hadn't opened it in years. Inside were 2 things. A copy of the flyer I'd made for Julian's very first business, a music promotion company that never took off, and the paperwork where I'd helped him apply for his initial business license. I had paid for the registration fees, covered the notary, even given him a blank invoice template. He never used any of it. He gave up after 3 months. But I had the receipts. That wasn't revenge, though. That was just history. The real gem? The folder I kept next to it. It had my original draft for a family reunion event I tried to plan 3 years ago, back when I still believed that if I just tried hard enough, we could all be close again. I'd gone all out. I designed matching shirts, scouted parks and catering options, and wrote out a full timeline. I sent out RSVP forms. Out of 24 people, 5 responded. Only 2 said yes. Julian? He didn't even open the email. My parents claimed they were probably going to be busy that weekend, despite the date being 8 months away. Sierra hadn't been around then, but I remember Julian joking in the group chat that I was treating a backyard picnic like the Oscars. That's when I stopped trying. But I hadn't thrown the plans away, because some part of me knew I'd want to remember how hard I tried, and how quickly they dismissed it. That reunion folder gave me an idea. A slow, meticulous, and completely legal idea. So here's what I did. I went back to the venue where I'd held my business anniversary. The owner, Emma, liked me. We'd worked together before. I told her I wanted to host a friends and found family gathering in late August. Nothing big, just a private event to celebrate chosen community. I said I'd handle all the planning. She smiled and handed me the contract. Then, I started putting things in motion. First, I created a new guest list. No biological family. Not a single one. Instead, I invited people who had shown up for me in real ways. My team, former clients, the neighbors who helped me shovel my driveway during the winter, the friend who watched my cat when I had surgery last year. Real people. Loyal people. Then, I did something very intentional. I hired a photographer and a videographer. Not for glamour. For documentation. I wanted pictures. I wanted footage. Smiling faces. Happy moments. Laughing children. Dancing friends. Delicious food. I wanted evidence of what a celebration looked like when no one was walking on eggshells or being quietly insulted behind their back. Then came the final touch. I wrote a post. A simple, heartfelt message. Nothing petty. Just a caption with a few photos of the event, the table settings, the speeches, the group photo under twinkling lights. And underneath, I wrote, "Sometimes family isn't who shares your blood, but who shows up when it matters." This weekend reminded me of the beauty of loyalty, kindness, and chosen love. Thank you to everyone who stood by me, not just this year, but always. You know who you are. I posted it at 9 a.m. on a Monday. By noon, I had over 50 comments. Most were from friends or clients. So beautiful. Such a lovely evening. You deserve this. But one comment stood out. It was from my Aunt Muriel, who never liked to pick sides, but always noticed more than she let on. She wrote, "Looks like a perfect celebration. Some people really missed out." That was all it took. By 3 p.m., the family group chat, which had been mostly silent since the housewarming, lit up like a signal flare. My mom was the first. "Mom, why didn't we hear about this gathering? Was this another business thing?" "Julian, so now you're just posting parties and acting like we're dead?" "Dad, is this how you want things to be? Us finding out from Facebook that we're not family anymore?" I didn't respond. At least, not right away. But I knew they wouldn't let it go. And I was right. That evening, I got a call from Sierra. I don't know how she got my number, probably from Julian's phone, but her name popped up and, out of curiosity, I answered. "Hello." There was a pause, and then her voice, sugar-laced but sharp. "Hi. I just wanted to say, we saw your little post." I said nothing. She continued, "It's really sad, you know? Watching someone push away their whole family just because they can't handle not being the center of attention." I finally spoke. I didn't push anyone away. I just stopped begging to be included. There was a silence. Then she laughed, low and clipped. "You can play victim all you want, but everyone sees it. You could have reached out. You could have talked to your brother. But you decided to make a scene." I blinked. "You mean like the one you staged with the fake invitations?" Silence again. Then she said, voice tight, "Excuse me?" "You heard me," I said quietly. "I know what you did. And the next time you try to manipulate a narrative, make sure the envelope doesn't have my return address and your handwriting." The call ended soon after that. But the damage was done for them. Because what they didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that I'd been documenting everything. The envelope, the messages, the screenshots from mutual friends who told me about the group chats Sierra had stirred up behind my back. I'd quietly saved every shred of evidence. Not for drama, but just in case. Now, I had more than just silence on my side. I had the truth, and I wasn't done yet. After my call with Sierra ended, I sat there, still and silent, phone resting face down on the desk. I thought I'd feel triumphant, vindicated. I didn't. What I felt was clarity. For the first time in years, I wasn't doubting myself. I wasn't second-guessing whether I had overreacted or taken something too personally. Everything they had done, every exclusion, every dig, every manipulative twist, had been real. And now, I had proof. But I didn't want revenge for attention. I wasn't interested in getting even just to make a point. I wanted peace. Real peace. The kind that only comes when you finally stop asking people to respect you and instead remove them from your life completely. And that meant one final step. See, after years of being made to feel like I didn't belong, I'd started building something for myself. Quietly, privately, and without them. Remember the family reunion I tried to organize? The one they ignored? Well, after it fell apart, I started working with a local nonprofit that helped organize community events, especially for people who had lost ties with family or didn't have one. I'd spent the past few years helping them behind the scenes, volunteering, donating, and eventually joining their board. One of our biggest initiatives was an annual Found Family Festival, a weekend-long event that connected people who felt left behind by their families of origin. This year, I had been named co-chair, and I had a platform, so I decided to use it. I reached out to the director and asked if I could give the opening night speech. Not to talk about my family specifically, but to speak to the experience of what it feels like to be overlooked, diminished, and eventually erased. To speak to the pain of pretending to be okay with being the outsider, and to show people that you can move forward without those who refuse to see your value. The night of the event, I stood at the podium in front of nearly 300 attendees. I wore a navy jumpsuit, hair pinned back, hands trembling just slightly as I adjusted the mic. "My name is Celeste," I began. And for years, I thought the problem was me. I told them the story in broad strokes. I shared how I'd spent years trying to earn love that came freely to others. How I bent myself into shapes to please people who only ever saw me as too much or not enough. How I had finally learned that sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away. The audience was silent as I finished. And then the applause started, slow at first, then growing. Some people were crying. A few stood. But what mattered most to me was the stillness I felt inside. No fear, no doubt, just truth. Afterward, I posted a short clip from the speech on my business page. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't name names. But people knew, especially people in my extended family. I received messages from a few relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Quiet apologies, small acknowledgments, nothing dramatic. But from my immediate family, radio silence. Until 3 weeks later, I was walking home from the grocery store when I saw the envelope on my doorstep. No return address, just my name, written in careful cursive I recognized instantly, my mother's. Inside was a letter, a full page. "No, I'm sorry, no ownership, just passive phrases like, 'I wish you hadn't taken things the way you did,' and 'we always tried our best, even if it wasn't what you wanted.' The final line? 'I hope you'll choose to come home someday. Your absence is hurting the whole family.' I folded the letter back into the envelope and placed it in a drawer. I didn't respond, because I had finally accepted that the home they wanted me to return to never truly existed for me. It was a place where I was tolerated, not loved, where silence was expected and boundaries were seen as betrayal. And I wasn't going back. Since then, life has been quieter and better. I've expanded my business, hired 2 new team members, and started mentoring young women trying to enter the events industry. My social circle has grown in ways I never expected. I'm surrounded by people who celebrate me without condition, not because they have to, but because they want to. My parents, Julian and Sierra, remain distant. Occasionally, I'll hear about them through a cousin or mutual acquaintance. I know Julian and Sierra got married in the fall. I wasn't invited, obviously, but I wasn't upset. I was relieved, because I finally stopped chasing a seat at a table that was never built for me. And now, I'm building my own table, one where kindness, respect, and loyalty are the only invitations anyone needs. So, to answer the unspoken question I know some people might still wonder. No, I didn't forgive them. I didn't forget, and I didn't soften. Because forgiveness isn't something owed, it's something earned. And they never once tried to earn it. They showed me who they were, again and again, and I finally believed them. That's the situation now. I am no longer part of their story, and they are no longer part of mine. And for the first time in my life, I'm okay with that. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments. If you like this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this.